Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of ClueCon Weekly. Joining us this week is none other than the VP of Engineering at SignalWire, Chris Rienzo. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today.
Thank you, Luca. Glad to be here.
Welcome. So the idea for today, when we discussed it, was about how you got started, what you've been developing over the years, and FreeSWITCH, and what the future holds in the technology and the space. So first of all, when did you get started using FreeSWITCH, and what did you build first?
Yeah, I mean, I was just doing the math on this. It's
Oh,
16 years ago. 16 years ago, yeah. We worked for a company called Soundbite Communications. It was a hosted IVR, outbound IVR, predictive dialer. And, at the time, a lot of companies then, we were using like Dialogic or NMS or all sorts of proprietary hardware and software to power this, to power these services. And at the time, the equipment was, was kind of end of life, right? And so we were looking, and we just didn't have an appetite to want to spend, the re-up and spend all that money to keep things going. And so we were encouraged. It was this very small team, me and two other developers, and we were encouraged to kind of look around and see if there are alternatives. And I think in '08, I think FreeSWITCH 1.0 was released, and we
yeah.
were aware of that and kind of took a look at that and was pretty impressed with what it could do. Spent a couple days reading the code, and it was like pretty easy to understand. And I think like a year later, my VP at the time finally gave me the go ahead because we had estimated that it would cost us, like, after the engineering is all done, it would be like 1/10 the cost to replace our existing infrastructure with something that was powered by FreeSWITCH. And so had to contribute a couple modules, things that were missing for speech recognition. Had to add mod unit MRCP and mod HTTP cache, and then
Wow. Was it you?
was it what?
You added those modules?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't
I
know.
didn't.
I absolutely
Yeah,
didn't know.
I didn't write the library. I just hooked the library up, right? So there is a unit MRCP library. It was
Yeah.
very, very complete. So it was just, but it was like my first module that I wrote for FreeSWITCH, which was a pretty challenging one to write, but got pretty heavy use from my the company I was working for at the time, and so it's still stable today. It's still out there today if anyone wants to use it.
Nice. And well, I think when I met you, you were working at a different company, though. I think you were working at Grasshopper, right?
Yeah, yeah. So right,
And we had
so
an interesting adventure together in that period.
yeah, that was interesting times. Grasshopper, that was a fun place. Um, so Soundbite, Dialer, Grasshopper, totally different business. It was like a still around too. Google Voice, basically for business. You can buy a second business line, 800 number, and within minutes set it up to forward calls to your phone. And I know, Luca, you were working on where were you? Were you working Mojolingo at the time, or the
Yeah,
Adhesion project?
addition.
Yeah.
Addition. In fact, most of the FreeSWITCH code is mine. I wrote the FreeSWITCH port
Oh yeah, yeah.
because addition used to work with asterisk
Mhm.
mainly, and something obscure other.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, exactly. So like similar to the previous, soundbite, a Grasshopper, same kind of task, right? Gotta get everything onto open source, onto FreeSWITCH. That's why they recruited me to do that. And yeah, created ModRio, which is the interface for adhesion. And that was a fun project. Um, it's sort of like Event Socket, right? So you have this app
Yeah.
that you know, and it's very easy to follow what's going on in the app, right? The app almost looks kind of script like, but behind the scenes, there's a lot going on to stay in sync with what's happening. But it was very powerful. You could do a lot with it. Um, and we have a few, and actually a few of us here at SignalWire that were, adhesion users. And
Yeah.
that was a fun time.
Yep. And would you say that the patterns that we work with throughout history, building adhesion, building other similar applications, reflect into what we have now at SignalWire? Some of them, like the general ideas. There's no XMPP there. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah, yeah. So and I think that's part of like why Tony wanted me to join SignalWire is because they had this vision for Relay, which had a lot of similarities to what was done with adhesion and Mod Rio. It was like a more advanced event socket, a little bit more structured and predictable
Hmm.
in terms of the interface was a little bit let's say cleaner. Um, and we tried to do that with the Relay WebSocket. It was one of the first projects that I worked on uh, with the rest of the team when I started here. And yeah, it was we took a lot of like ideas that we had learned, from both Event Socket and Rio and applied that to what we did with Relay. And it still works quite well. It's really great for applications that you know that you want to be able to write something really quick, really easy to follow, and you want to host like your bot. I think that tends to be the types of applications that use Relay. It's just more of these like more interactive kind of AI applications. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, works well for that.
for sure. I think the step up with SWML is it's practically serverless, unless you need it to not be serverless. But it's my favorite feature because I've been iterating a lot on that. But I'll let
Yeah,
you first of all explain what SWML is and where how we got here.
yeah. So Relay kind of it was related more to like the Relay WebSocket, more like the event socket, and SWML that came along. To fill that need where it's more like the FreeSWITCH XML dial plan, right? It's sort of in between the FreeSWITCH XML dial plan and some of the stuff that you could do if you were doing Lua or JavaScript scripting. It's a little bit more structured like the XML dial plan, so there is restrictions. It's very much purpose built for processing communications, but but it also allows us to design it in a way that makes it very easy to do kind of the most common things that you're going to want to accomplish in a phone call. And it is, I think I agree, it's kind of my most favorite way now uh, to do things on the SignalWire platform. Do you have
Yeah.
any favorite apps, anything you've done with it?
So, well, recently I've been doing something that's going to be published soon, which is examples that mimic what's in the vanilla FreeSWITCH style plan,
Mhm.
and it's been really fun as a starting point. What else? We've done a very interesting reminders app that's a demo for elderly people to check on them and see if they need anything and if they taken medication, that kind of stuff. And an application like that can be actually quite challenging if you don't have the right platform to build it around, even as a demo. It can, I mean, you can easily spend a week just coding away. Took us a few hours. We have integrations with many different APIs and platforms built. That's another very strong point. It's super easy to do an integration to an API, which is really
Mhm.
as an integrator in general, which is my main line of work. It is very powerful for sure.
Yeah, and for sure the serverless aspect is nice because I know just as a developer, we're all a bit lazy, right? We don't always want to have to stand up a bunch of infrastructure just to do some simple things. Like how hard is it supposed to be, right? You have a phone call come
Yeah.
in and dial somebody else. Why do I need to spin up all sorts of web servers and web hooks and callbacks and all those things when I could just, just like we do on other systems, right? Like in GitHub or whatever with GitHub Actions, you can kind of do the
Yeah.
same thing on SignalWire. It's like you just write the flow. What do you want it to do? Save it, hook it up to a number, you're done.
Yeah, it is. Also, it's a very low barrier to entry, so people can just get started. Even some people tried it and found they wanted something else, right? So it's not always
Mhm.
your solution, but it's a great way to find out quickly, which is always part of of a good experience. Like sometimes it's not for you, but at least you know in 2 hours, which is to me is very, again, as someone who builds applications for many customers in many situations, it's useful. So but in general it's going to fit a lot of use cases. Speaking of which, I think you have a demo sitting around, right? We were
Yeah.
discussing
So
this earlier.
yeah, exactly. Right. So just like when we were, we got the inspiration for Relay, similarly with SWML, we were always thinking about what kinds of things would we have liked to have available to really make our lives easier, right? Like 10
Hmm.
years ago, 16 years ago when we were building these systems. And yeah, I thought about a lot of times when I was designing Swimble, I thought about like what kinds of things would have really helped me out, if if I was doing this at Grasshopper, and yeah, we can show off a few things here that it was pretty pretty quick to do. Let's see, share screen.
Yeah, let's leave the time it took you to develop this as a surprise after the demo. Like we'll do a
Oh,
reveal.
sure.
We'll do how long did it take. So after you see it, the audience start thinking about how long it took, and then we'll give you show you.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, if you'd like to screen share, you should have
Yeah, I'm
permissions.
just gonna grab my. There it is.
Here we go.
All right. So I'm in my SignalWire space and go into my SWML scripts and take a little bit of look at it. So as you can see, SWML, it's either JSON or YAML. We'll
Hmm.
accept either. I tend to prefer to do it in the JSON format. It's just a little bit less ambiguous to me. I know I always mess up the spacing with
Yeah,
YAML, but
YAML is great. I prefer YAML in general, but I've never really figured out how to specify a number versus a string. So sometimes you just break it on that. So
yeah, well,
JSON is
yeah.
a bit more precise.
Yeah, it's a little bit ambiguous. I think we can tighten that up a little bit. Um, so right, so it's pretty simple. At the top level, there's what we call sections, and these are like individual blocks of code that can execute. Main is always the first one that gets processed in a script. So I have a few examples in here. So basically, what this is kind of a second line business line. And the way it works is there's two phone numbers that I bought. I bought an
Mhm.
800 number that will route to a menu, like a route to the kind of like a company main line IVR. And then I have a second phone number that I bought that routes directly to my extension. And then I also included some time of day routing. So if
Mhm.
call is outside of business hours, it will route to an after hours section. Pretty easy to do. So, right. So, we have all sorts of stuff in here. So time of day, right? We get the time of day. It's just in JavaScript, store it in a var, and then we can, this
So
con
you
is,
can set
yeah,
conditions and you can execute inline JavaScript.
that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
that's
And then this con here, this is sort of like FreeSWITCH XML dial plan where it goes top to bottom. It just keeps evaluating conditions, and then the first one that matches it executes. And so that's what this is doing here, right? And it says, the time of day. If it's before 12, then go to after hours. And then I have in here a little hook for if the direct number is dialed, then transfer to extension. Otherwise, it's just going to play the top level menu, right? And it's pretty easy. It'll play the greeting. thank you, your extension, and then then it'll check the input, and if they press 2, it goes to extension 2. Um, and then we spent a lot of time really trying to make it so that it's easy to connect parties together, right? And so I have here, in my opinion, fairly straightforward, right? He says here we want to in extension 2, we just want to bridge the call to me, and I can be reached either by a phone number. This is not my real phone number, by the way, or a SIP endpoint that I have registered on the system, and I have it registered, either through mobile or on my desktop
Oh,
or wherever I am. And then for dialing a phone number, right? Sometimes you don't want the call to go to the voicemail system on your phone number, and so what you can do there is you can add a little prompt that gets played when the line picks up, and then they can just press 1 to accept the call. Otherwise, it just moves on, and that's what this is right here. It's just a little bit of text to speech with some SSML. It'll say out the phone number that the call is coming from, and then uh, if they press 2 or anything else, it'll just hang up. Yeah.
so call screening is very easy and
Oh yeah,
pretty
very easy to
useful
do.
tool.
And then we have a simple voicemail, and voicemail is just as simple as play a message, record, and then when they're done, you can be polite and say goodbye and hang up, so they know that it was intentional. And that's that. And then phone numbers, right?
Mhm.
Bought a phone number, and then all I had to do was just go in and say goes to a SWML script and the name of the script, and that's that. And it's as simple as that. Not really well set up to actually make the call live here, but
Yeah, not a problem.
I can guarantee it does work.
We'll put the source code in a in link and on the video description first of all, so people can take a look. And so I think what's important to say here, to point out here, is that is entirely serverless. It's just
Mhm.
a block of JSON running on SignalWire servers, and it does conditions. It can evaluate JavaScript. I think those are inline expressions that are one line and not tied to each other. So you have to do a little bit of repetition if you're doing multiple evaluations, but it's fine. I mean, it's literally just JavaScript, so you can do an evaluation that gives you multiple variables, maybe, and just put them in an object, so it's not super hard. And the goal here is really to make a lot of applications possible without having to do anything else other than buying a number and pointing it to JSON block, which is very interesting. So let me ask you a question. Me and you are very experienced FreeSWITCH application developers. Although you've been working on the other side for a while now, but you still know your way around. How long would it take you to build the same thing on FreeSWITCH?
Oh, I mean this. Yeah. Well,
With
for
the
me,
call
this.
screening, which we all
Oh
know
yeah,
isn't too easy.
yeah. Definitely, there's a lot there, and I mean, in free, it's actually FreeSWITCH is always easy to do if you just have a single server, right? It's always when you want to cluster things and scale it and all that it becomes really challenging, and so right then you start introducing. You have to have a Camaillio or an OpenSIPs, and then your cluster of free switches, and you have to manage everything that goes along with that. And yes, it will take uh, infrastructure like that. Yeah, it will take you months and months of full-time development. Plus, if you're migrating from an old system to a new system, there's always that time that goes on for that as well. So it's a significant amount of effort. For sure. Just having done this twice, I've done 2 migrations of this at 2 different companies, and it's a big lift. Um, I think it's a lot easier now, just
Hmm.
a little bit easier, right? Because we've over the years have produced some modules that help with things, but you're going to find something's not there, something's not right, especially still around speech recognition. There's things out there that connect that will connect you okay with speech rec. But I think I think that we have probably the best solution out there right now, like something that's like super low latency. So it'll be hard to beat that without really putting in the time and the hours to
Yeah.
figure that out.
So the way I start, I've been doing FreeSWITCH training at ClueCon for a while. So the way I start FreeSWITCH training is that it's always easy to make one call. What kills you is trying to make 1,000 calls.
Yeah.
Because one call is going to take you probably an hour. Getting two calls at the same time might already be a problem if you just have a prototype, right?
Mhm.
It is so you're right that it's not just the logic, it's the scale. Although as someone who's built a lot of applications, some little things like just the confirmation or doing the speech recog right more than text to speech, which is actually quite easy. Although latency in text to speech can be a problem still, even with UniMRCP, frankly.
Mhm.
There is a lot of little things that will get you. So, and compare that to how long did it take you to build the script that you saw?
Oh, that script. Yeah, I just did that this morning. I forgot that we had this call, so I did it right before.
So I can
Yeah.
testify to that because we chatted before the call,
Yeah.
and about an hour and a half before the call, Chris said, "Well, you know what? I forgot about the call and to build it." So it really took an hour, and it's really powerful, and it's a production grade. Like you can use it from the get go. Again, we have all sort of this kind of scripts deployed internally, which support users to run support at SignalWire. They're literally just SWML scripts built with various features. And my favorite feature is still the fact that it has built-in API capabilities. So you can make it hit an endpoint, any endpoint you have out
Mhm.
there, and that practically just solves most of any problems because most companies building a sophisticated application when they already have the data sitting somewhere, probably in a web app. So all you need to do is set up your couple features so you can grab them, and that will always work. It's extremely powerful.
Yeah, and we're pretty flexible with it too. I mean, it's we can run it 100% on SignalWire, or you can host it yourself, just like you would with our compatibility XML. So, it's whatever you prefer. You know, um, as I said, my opinion is I don't really have the appetite to stand up that kind of infrastructure anymore for my own
No, yeah.
tests. So I like it that the SignalWire can do it all for me.
Yeah, I think we gotten real close to a cloud version of FreeSWITCH with SWML because it's
Yeah.
a file-defined configuration. You can also serve that through HTTP, so you're not actually limited to our serverless. You can totally generate the JSON on the fly, have it stored in the servers, whatever works for you. So you can do progressive caching, etc.
Mhm.
A couple of the more complicated apps we have lying around actually use that pattern, so it's not actually serverless. It's running on a web server. It actually makes it easier. For example, if you have to hit your own server to check, even just for the name of the person you're calling, might as well just generate the JSON directly with the name in it. Instead of doing the HTTP call every time before you say, "Hello, Chris, we're calling you to check on you," it's actually easy to just generate the JSON block. So it is very flexible. You can go all the way down to on the fly generation of the whole JSON thing and AI prompts. And that leads me into a very good topic. You can mix this with the AI tool, right? So you can have both traditional IVRs and AI in the same context, move around between the two.
Oh
It's
yeah, for sure. And I found that it's a lot easier, I think, to build the AI than it is to build these menus by hand. Um, it's so much more powerful if you have this agent that can determine your intent and route you to the right thing instead of crafting these large trees that I know that when I call them, I just hate interacting with them. I'm just trying to find what's the magic button I got to press to talk to a human. Um,
so
so yeah.
few days ago I was watching a so being in the business makes you notice the strangest things. I was watching Inventing Anna, which is a Netflix series about this sort of serial scammer that pretended to be a rich German heiress and
Mhm.
took New York by storm for a while. There's one scene where one of her friends is trying to call American Express or one credit card company to check on their credit because they're having trouble with the cars, she being a scammer. And what she does is she says random words, and then she starts pressing zero repeatedly, like presses zero like 10 times and says some more random words, more zeros. And at that point, the American Express or whatever, the bank, a live person picks up. So
Yep.
I think that's the normal behavior. Like, it's just that you effectively trying to fight and confuse the IVR
Mhm.
so it doesn't know what to do with you and just got you to a human.
Oh,
It's
totally. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the first time I see that on film too, on screen. It was pretty. It was
Everyone
pretty
knows how to
interesting.
do that now. That's kind of standard for interacting with these systems.
Yeah, it is. I think, in fact, this is an interesting, almost philosophical discussion. We might need, as an industry, to start training people that an AI agent is not the same thing as a plain agent or a plain IVR, so they want to talk to it again. Uses ways to make it undistinguishable from a human, which we've been trying at SignalWire and we've been doing very well. But I think the market needs a little bit of training.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know what works best there, but I would think that as long you're always going to probably know that you're talking to an AI. It's probably best that you do know that you're talking
Yeah.
to an AI and not try and hide it too much because that's but um but as long as it's helpful, right? If it understands you and it can determine your intent properly and route you to the right place or get you the information you need, I think that's pretty powerful, and I'd be okay with that if I called the system and did that. And I played around with it a bit too, and it's just amazing what you with it's even less effort. It's even less effort than building a follow me on in SWML to set up the AI agent.
One of the demos that's going out soon from the PMM department is a calendar integration with calendar.com and with call.com and with Google. And it's actually so handy to use that I sort of want to start using that instead of scheduling meetings via the UI, because it's just so natural. It's the first time that I feel like it's better that way than the UI Google provides you. Just, I'd like to schedule a meeting with Chris tomorrow at 10 a.m. Please check if it's free. If it's free, send the link. If not, let me know an alternative time slot, and the bot will do that.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
great.
Chris seems to be busy at 10 tomorrow, but his schedule is open at 10:30. Would you like to set an appointment for that? Okay, perfect. And then you just get the link. It's like having your own secretary. It's amazing. So yeah, that's the kind of thing you can do, and I think we'll be doing more in the future.
Oh yeah, I
Cool.
mean, think about like the types of really limited speech rack that we could do in the 2000 earlier 2000s, and it was
Oh,
very expensive, very stupid command and control kind of things. It just understands like some words and phrases. It was really cumbersome, and glad to be moving past those days, for sure.
I'm wondering if anybody remembers the how bad text to speech was too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, for sure.
the first day, I remember. I mean, F Light still exists if you really want to use F Light. I think it's bundled with FreeSWITCH these days. You can actually install
That
it
was
with the
always
app.
kind of a toy text to speech, though. I mean, you could get text to speech that was better than that at the time, but it was very pricey, and you needed to use the MRCP module for that as well. But yes, I remember Flight. It was not not great.
For a medium time, like not super for a while, we were actually using a hacked version of the speech synthesis tool that
Mm.
Mac operating system used to bundle at the time. Like you could run that locally, not no containers at the time. You could run that locally in a sort of hacked binary and have it output audio for you. It will put it in the file so you have to generate, play it back. But that was actually a very good solution for a while. It's then yeah, things got better now. We have
Oh
much
yeah,
better.
yeah. I mean, for sure, it's the barrier to entry to add. any kind of speech rec, text to speech, AI to any of these systems today, it's just unbelievably low. Um, it's just a totally different it's just a totally different world now. Um, what we can do today, you starting a business today, there's just so many things that you can just build on top of and get right out the door, get to, really quick time to market versus these, things that we were dealing with, a decade or so ago. You get into really long sales cycles, spending a lot of money. Technology was really complicated and not easy to integrate, unless you were buying everything as like a really expensive solution, with like voice XML or whatever. But yeah, there
I have
weren't
a
very
very
people
fun
besides
story.
banks that could pay for that.
I have a very fun story about that. It's very short, actually, about trying to buy a speech recognition license from one of the most famous companies at the time. I won't name because they might get upset at me, but everybody knows who they are. Their main product is a fantasy beast that flies and spits fire. And I didn't man. We had cash in hand. We literally had a customer who had set aside the budget. I was running a consulting company at the time. They had literally given us the money to buy the licenses. Like, it wasn't even a case of literally just send me the licenses, I'll wire you the money, or vice versa. Just I couldn't get in touch with anybody from sales. I literally couldn't buy those licenses. We ended up having to do something else because after 2 weeks of trying, we couldn't get the licenses bought. So we just went with I think it was UniMRCP. And what's the common, what is it? I don't remember what was the common, what, UniMRCP, yeah.
Yeah.
Using UniMRCP with Sapstrel probably or something like that. That worked out decently for the solution we had in mind at the time.
Hmm.
And but it's still weird that, so you're right. The sales cycles, you were lucky if they happened, because
Yeah.
we didn't manage to make the sales cycle actually happen. They never answered my emails. I don't even know, like the amount of licenses at the time wasn't even too bad. So we weren't too small, whatever. It's just, yeah, it's just how it used to
I
work.
don't know. I think it
I'm
was
glad
like, wasn't it like hundreds? It was like hundreds of dollars, depending on which vendor you're using. It could have been up to hundreds of dollars a port.
we
Per
were
port.
buying $80,000 of licenses
Yeah. Okay.
because those were the ports that we needed. That's the other thing you don't get with SignalWire, but to be honest, you don't get with many players in the industry right now. You no longer have to worry about, I have 4 ASR ports, and now I've got 5 calls. What do I do? Which is a
And
real
that's
problem,
why
right?
you needed MRCP, right? Because it was so expensive that you would have this cluster of servers for all that. You'd have this small cluster of speech rec servers and text to speech servers to then, provide that service to your whole much larger cluster of voice nodes or media servers. Yeah.
Which will at least hide it a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I mean, we've done a lot of we've gone we've gone far from where we started, but there's still a lot coming up. So, well, in fact, I think we have to wrap up on that.
Yeah.
You're in the unique position to tell us what's coming up in the future of SignalWire. So if you don't build it, it doesn't happen. So you have to know.
Yeah. Well, so we learned a few things. I learned a few things this morning with Sumo. There'd be a few nice things to have to make it easier to do. To make it easier to build your follow me or your office setup or whatever you want to build, and we'll just keep identifying the pain points and eliminating them. It's Swimmel's kind of pretty stable right now, so it's just we just fill in the gaps. Anything we find that's going to make our lives easier. I think the time of day stuff could be greatly improved. So, look there, continue
Yeah,
to improve the integration with AI. That's a big push. And just finding ways to make it easy, continue to make it easier to connect people together, connect people, applications, AI, other systems. That's what we're doing. We just making it easier and easier to do that, and just continue to look for more of that down the road.
absolutely. Well, yeah, I think it's a I mean, it's not just an interesting tool; it's a very useful tool. We'll be building all sorts of things on this, including internal stuff. And there's more coming up, so stay tuned. There will be a link in the description for the SWML file. And this year, ClueCon at some form will be doing SWML and relay training for the first time. So anybody who would like to join us in Chicago in August, I think there's an early bird sale going on at the time we're recording this. So I might be wrong by the time this airs, but in case, send me an email. We'll see what we can do. And it's going to be really an interesting ride, and we have many good things coming up. Cool. So, Chris, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Luca.
And so, Chris Rienzo, none other than the Vice President of Engineering at SignalWire, joined us today to show us SWML. We talk about the history of, application development around FreeSWITCH, which is still a great tool, by the way. I use FreeSWITCH constantly. It's just that for application development itself, there's better tools right now that you can use coupled with FreeSWITCH to get better results, more scale, and quicker time to deploy. So check out SWML, check out Relay, and for the rest of the people, I'll see you next week. Goodbye.